right, that's a wrap on season 1 of House of the Dragon, which for the most part was a pretty good show. It's dogged, of course, as I've repeated ad nauseum, by the collapse of Game of Thrones. But this one unto itself is more or less okay. It's had its stumbles. I've seen other reviews where they're talking about, hey, the characters are all over the place. I don't really think so. They do jump through time a bit, and you have to have some amount of compensation there about, well, what'd you miss out on? But the whole thing is they're vying for the power, even at the expense of family and love that they have for one another. I mean, the core characters are Alicent and Rhaenyra, and they were very close friends, perhaps even closer. Well, who knows? It's all under the bridge at this point. But they've been put in these positions and forced to be brutal enemies. And that's part of the tragedy of it all. But ultimately, as I've said, none of these characters are good. There's a possibility of honor here and there, and they throw that in, even in ones they're setting up to be major villains. At least it appears so. But the last episode, they had this big ending with the dragon and everything, and so it's spectacular and all that. But so Rainey comes in there and she stomps all over the peasants and then doesn't kill Alicent in the whole court. And the war's over before it began, right then and there. Really, it would have been, the whole leadership that's, stealing the crown would be done. But instead she makes a big move like that, kills a bunch of other people, everyone with the real target, and then flies away and in this episode she shows up to tell Rhaenyra what's going on, and Rhaenyra's all upset. This pushes her into childbirth, and she loses her latest child with Daemon. And boy, they've been pretty gratuitous about the birth scenes, and this one, and she keeps refusing all the midwives and everything, and it just all goes there. I don't know, there's an obsession with that in the story, but so I suppose that'd be another thing that she will hold Alicent perhaps responsible for. I don't know, but it's, I guess, a bit of a foreshadowing as to how the episode ends. Because even after all that, she's still reluctant to go to war with Alicent. Daemon's ready to go. He's getting we got to find our allies and our troops and all that. And Daemon is pretty much a villain in this series, but at the same time, he's got a point. And figuring out who's still with them and loyalties, that's just the matter of circumstance. There's no other way around it. And so he's not wrong in that. But he's pushing we got to take the offensive and attack and that sort of thing. And she's not too crazy about that. She's, I guess, still hoping that there's a means by which the war can be avoided. Obviously doubtful. So the Hand, Alicent's daddy, the creep, shows up and offers conditions to Rhaenyra, saying, well, you can keep your titles, Dragonstone would be yours and all that sort of thing, and your kids would be safe. All this sort of, if you can go by their word, So, I mean, at some point you could understand perhaps she could find some sort of ground with Alicent, but not with Daddy still around and all the other people. The whole damn court had been plotting to do this. So, and it all comes down to they're protecting their children, and that's what pushes them beyond everything else as far as any kind of deal or reconciliation coming between them or anything like that, even though they were both manipulated by the powers that be. And even the powers that be are being manipulated. It's just it's just the way the rules of power unfold in the world they live in. But there's always choices and whatnot, so it explains it, but it doesn't really excuse their actions and all of this. So the war's afoot. That's the whole point of this season, was getting this big civil war started, and it's on for the next season. So I figured the sea snake. That's what I call him, the sea sneak. No, his fever broke and he seems to have recovered. He's a bit limp, but other than that, he's made a comeback and he's decided to take Rhaenyra aside, and so his fleet's at her disposal and all that. Her two bastard sons, the older one seems to have a soldier in him, and Sea Snake kind of sees that, I think, and he's kind of impressed with him, even though he's like, yeah, he doesn't really have a claim, but whatever, Rhaenyra decides, so that's that. And but the younger son, well, he's just not cut out for this. And there's a scene where the two brothers are training, they're fighting one another, and he falls down, and the older brother's, what the hell was that? He's chewing him out and everything, and the knights have to come break them up and all that. But at the same time, you see that it's harsh and everything, but it's a scene, I think, where the older brother is trying to toughen up his younger brother, because you're going to get killed if you don't learn how to defend yourself and fight. And, well, it's too late, because the ultimate cliffhanger here was right up to the point of all this going on. Rhaenyra agrees she does have to establish who's on her side, and the brothers, or the older brother, decides, hey, you know what? Sending ravens takes too long, although magically in Game of Thrones they got quicker and quicker towards the end. Ravens would bring messages. He says the dragons will get there faster. Okay. So the two brothers decide they'll take their dragons and visit the two other houses that they need to deliver the queen's message and shore up their allegiance. So they go by themselves. There's no, I don't know, like a bodyguard to go with them, something. But you can only put so many people on the back of those dragons. And so the two brothers go. The younger brother's the one who is sent to the Baratheon house. And he goes there, and Aemon's there. And Aemon still wants revenge for the loss of his eye. And so Baratheon kind of blows off the kid and all this. And that's kind of where it stands. But then Aemon threatens the kid. He says, I want your eye, cut your eye out and we'll come to a deal or something. It's like, come on. And the kid's like, I'm not doing that, and Aemon kind of loses his cool, and Baratheon has to rein him in. You're not doing that in my house, so he's like, damn it. But anyway, and Aemon had already made a deal with the guy, and the queen hasn't really offered anything to him, so he's pissed off about that and everything. So the kid goes back to his dragon, takes off. It's in the middle of a storm, but he realizes he's got to get the hell out of there. It's not safe for him. And then here comes Aemon on his dragon, which is much older and larger than I'm already forgetting his name, but Rhaenyra's youngest son. And they have a duel of dragons, which is sort of foreshadowing what's going to happen. Both sides have dragons. Daemon's working to make sure they have more, and sounds likely that they would. And so there you go. It's going to talk about your scorched earth. But Aemon appears to be trying to just stick it to the kid and scare him. Ultimately was not trying to kill him. Hasn't really been willing to go that far. He hates the kid for what happened to his eye, even though in reality that's his own damn fault. I mean, he's much older and bigger, and he was picking on that kid, and in the tussle this happens. dummy. And plus the dragon he stole. So, I mean, yeah. So anyway, the dragons get pissed off in this. They're animals. They're fighting one another. And so first, Rhaenyra's boy, his dragon turns on the big one and starts and blows fire in its face. So then the big dragon says, oh yeah. So it comes up and kills the dragon and I'm sorry, forgetting his name again. Poor kid. And that's it. He's dragon poo, I guess, if there's anything left that didn't fall to the ground. And all of this was shocking to Aemon. Both boys Aemon's pretty much a man at this point, were trying to rein their dragons in. They didn't want to do it, and they couldn't stop them. They were pissed at the fight. And my guess is that's also a tension. They're going to lose control of their dragons in this war. Because it hadn't happened. They haven't seen this yet. And this is a little different than having them go barbecue their enemies and whatnot. So, yeah, it goes out of their hand. They can't control what they think they want. And so there's Aemon. And the idea that they were going to be able to quell this or somehow pacify Rhaenyra and all that, that's it. The war's on. And he drew first blood. And he's sitting there and he realizes the consequences of this, but, well, what are you going to do? So, whoops. But it's one of those things that was a common theme throughout, where, they want the power, but at the same time, they're not all that crazy about going that far. Some are, obviously. But it is that, so at some point there's some humanity in Aemon, I suppose is what they're showing there. But, at this point it's probably gone, because even though he didn't mean for it to happen, it's his fault that it did. He instigated this fight. And, look what happens when that happens there. Aemon, you instigated the first one, lost an eye, and now you've murdered a little boy. How about that, huh? And so those are the elements there. And that's what sets up it's the spark that lights the war, that with plenty of gasoline everywhere because of what's been happening throughout the season. So it's being said that it stumbled. A lot of this is like Rhaenyra is not making much of a queen. Well, she still isn't. I mean, she knows the rules and everything. She's, she was raised by her father and she's been in that court and everything. But she's given to her own passions and whatnot. And, her lust for her uncle, stuff like that. And her regret is over losing Alicent, and that's about it. And now she's lost her child. So that's it. When they go back and they give her the news, she turns around and that's it. War's on. Her little baby's dead. But you sent your little baby to do this dangerous work of messaging and just hope that, hey, everybody will honor the decorum here in the proper channels. Kill the messenger. And it just didn't occur to you that they would send one of their own, and as luck would have it, it's Aemon. Oh, jeez. So you bear some responsibility there, Rhaenyra. Not too smart. Now, of course, this is a medieval fantasy world, but still in medieval times, they did put children in positions of authority and responsibility long before they should have been. And that sort of thing. They married him off young and that sort of thing. And this would be no different. But still, he's just by himself out there. Yeah, not too bright. So again, even though this terrible event happened and what the dragons are about to do, there's still the only noble characters in this story. Because again, they can always fall back on, hey, we're dumb animals. And I got the two, Aemon really, he started this up, and then, the dragon didn't obey you, huh? You didn't understand how dragons interact with each other. Yeah. Well, anyway, that's one of those things, the unforeseen consequences of igniting something like a war. You map it out, and it almost never goes that way. And so there's that little lesson. So House of the Dragon is an okay show. It's not anywhere near the greatness that Game of Thrones had achieved at its peak, and then quickly lost it in a spectacular fashion. It burned itself to the ground. But as just a soap opera with dragons, it functions that way, and it's all about the castle intrigue and battle for the crown, and that in and of itself makes for some good drama. And that's all you can say for it. That's what they'll do next season. Well, the war, of course. There was some, I'm reluctant to criticize CGI because it doesn't matter as much to me as it does others. I mean, Superman mustache, that was pretty bad. But there was some bad CGI here and there with the dragons. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But what are you going to do? There's only so much money. They didn't have $1 billion. Imagine what you could do with $1 billion. So, yeah, House of Dragons easily won that battle with Rings of Power, and now they're scrambling and in trouble. And the showrunners might not even be able to come back because, they were frauds again. Yeah. So, there it is, House of the Dragon. And we'll see what they do next season, I guess.